podcasts, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast. There are 4 lights! Its 5-year mission to explore strange and familiar worlds, to seek out new listeners and new civilizations, to boldly go where most nerds have already gone. Join Matt, Shirley, and their guests as they talk about an episode of Star Trek, from the original series through Enterprise. They'll cover every episode, eventually.
I don't recognize your face, but I recognize this place.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to There Are 4 Lights. I'm Matt, and my normal co-host, Shirley, is not with us tonight. She has a little bit of a headache, so she had to call off. Instead, I am joined by our newest member of the There Are 4 Lights, Johnny Brown, who will be covering Star Trek Discovery with us every week.
Yes.
For the next 10 weeks. I don't know.
Is that however long they got?
Right. And then we have a special guest, a friend of Johnny's, Erica Hiland.
Hello. Yes, that's me.
She's also here with us. So, Star Trek, we watched a thing.
Listen.
Watched.
It was... This is bad when all we have is sighs. Sighs and laugh, people.
Sorry. So let's talk through the storyline very, very briefly.
And
by
okay.
briefly, I mean I want to hit this real quick because then I have a lot of things that I have thoughts on.
Yeah, I want you to know out there
have 2
in listening
pages.
land, poor producer Matt, poor producer Q was just feverishly typing, very feverishly typing.
We see Klingons. They open up. They have a thing. It's so the Klingons. We get to meet some Klingons that there's some sort of religious fervor going on here, right? No.
I mean,
I
yeah,
am
like
inclined to agree. Yeah.
It was some sort of religious thing. I think the thing that kind of threw me off instantly was cinematography wise, it was beautiful, it was stunning, and the way they moved it, like.
Go ahead, you're fine.
Well, wait, because
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
For that scene, it was fine, but then like the light hit, and I was like, okay, I couldn't tell if the Klingon was like in like Goldfinger body paint or like I couldn't. That's when I was like, oh, now the cinematography went awry because are you in body paint? Is it like what's happening here? And I was like, and then like I couldn't tell if they were supposed to be Klingon. And I was like,
we'll get deeper into this later.
But yeah.
Let's quickly.
Sorry,
we're
you're right,
gonna
you're right, I'm
no.
sorry.
We have thoughts. We got. Then we see the captain, Georgiou. Is that how you pronounce the captain's name?
We'll go with that. Played by Michelle Yeoh. That's fine.
And her first officer, Burnham.
Yeah.
Burnham. Yeah.
Oh,
Burnham. They're on an alien planet that's a desert, and there's some banter back and forth. They fire down a hole to open up the well, and then they leave by drawing. Oh my gosh!
Just listen.
They get found by drawing a Starfleet insignia in the sand by walking.
Mm-hmm.
We won't discuss that yet.
Yeah.
Then we, went to commercial break. We're going to talk about commercial breaks too.
Oh, jeez.
We come back. We find out it's in May 11th of 2256. We have a specific date, which is very odd for Star Trek. I'm not opposed to that.
No,
but it's odd. We are at some sort of relay, fixing it, finding out what's going on. There's something that they can't scan out in the distance. They decide to send the first officer, because we'll get into that. Never mind. I'm just going to keep moving. Send the first officer to investigate. First officer gets there, gets a little too curious, lands on the thing. Something comes out. Turns out it's Klingon. Accidentally kills it, because that's how we're going to come back to that. And then she comes back, but she's been hurt from this little bit of a fight and may not make it back because there's radiation and stuff. It was all explained. The technical jargon aspect of this show was not bad.
No.
They laid it all out for us. There was only a little bit of over explanation, which I appreciated. However,
right?
So moving on. Then there was commercial break. She wakes up the first officer wakes up in
A decontamination
in
pod.
the sick bay.
Mhm.
There's a doctor working on her, so on and so forth. It's typical Star Trek
Yeah.
stuff. She reports to the captain when she's not supposed to because she should be healing more, so on and so forth. We go back to the Klingons, and they're essentially breaking in. They're celebrating the man who died, or the Klingon that died.
Yes.
Their language seems off. Well, never mind. Moving past it. We get a little backstory on the first officer, that her family was killed at Doctori Alpha. I'm not sure if that's
I
how
think
it's
so,
spelled,
yeah.
but it's mostly pronounced that way.
Yeah.
She was raised by Sarek, making her Spock's sibling, but we're assured by the producers that will be explained later.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, how many we did get to see naked half lady running around. I'm not. Enterprise had this thing, and I'm going to touch on this briefly, and we're going to move on, where they tried to over-sexualize T'Pol
Yes.
all the time.
Mhm.
Like, let's put her in a decontamination chamber and have this guy rub gel all over, and then there'll be sexual. I don't need this. In this, the sexual tension can be handled in a, I hate to say this, in a classier way, a la Riker, or heck, Picard. Like, even Kirk's like better off than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they got phase cannons. That's awesome. So we start to see them progress towards a conflict, like a space conflict. Phase cannons are pointed at the thing that they can't detect, and then a Klingon ship unstealths is what they call it, which it's fair. If they don't know the Klingons have stealth technology or cloaking technology, this is what they're going to call it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Commercial break.
There were a lot of commercials, people. Like, there was just one too many.
There's some more Klingon like fervor scene where they're like, go out and light the array, and then they come back to the Shinzao.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not great with my pronunciation of Asian words, so of Chinese words, so I want to make sure that I say it correctly. There's a back and forth between the captain and the first officer, where they're not, and an admiral, where they're not going to attack the ship.
Mhm.
Then there's a commercial break.
Mhm.
Then the first officer leaves the bridge to go talk to somebody. She calls Sarek, who clearly has nothing going on in his life because he's just waiting for calls. We'll get back to that.
Oh, this is going to be a rough season, kids.
Then the captain walks from station to station to check in with people. Not going to touch on that. The first officer comes back, Burnham, and explains that the Vulcans, when they first met the Klingons destroyed their ship. And
Right.
from that point forward, the Vulcans, every time they met a Klingon, didn't talk to him, just fired on him, which this is good explanation. I like this. And so she suggests a Vulcan hello. Earlier, when we're talking with Saru, who is their Kelpian,
Yes.
he explains a little bit more about why they should run. And so there's a back and forth here that is interesting. We're going to say interesting. Burnham then, induces mutiny, whatever, with a Vulcan neck pinch, whatever. Then starts to prepare to fire on the ship.
Mhm.
The captain, who is resilient to neck pinches, we'll get to that. Comes on the bridge
With a phaser.
with a phaser,
Ready.
and then suddenly there are all these ships that show up that are Klingon. I guess they're Klingon because they're not Klingon designs. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends.
Yeah.
That's
And we should also let me point out also that while producer Q catches his breath and doesn't, fall out from stroke, that every time we would come back from commercial break, there was always a plug for CBS All Access.
Oh no, I got notes on commercials too. I have a note for commercials.
I was listen.
I'm really tired of the idea of young Sheldon. Like, sidebar here.
Yeah.
I have seen enough ads.
I
for
didn't
Young
even
Sheldon,
know
I don't
until
even
tonight,
see
and
the show.
I wish I hadn't known. I was like,
There's
I
billboards.
I understand why they're plugging All Access essentially 4 times, because we got 4 commercial breaks.
yes.
I understand why they're actually we got 5, because then after the episode ends, we go to commercial to come back to tell us to watch it on All Access. So 5 commercial breaks, 5 plugs for All Access. I get why they're doing it. It's to push people to the net. I get that. But the people that are going to watch this, that you want your core to be, already know where it's going to be. So you're talking to the people that don't know anything, which are of a generation that aren't going to go get
They don't
CBS
care.
access.
Yeah, they're not going to get CBS access.
Holy
So,
cow.
what else?
And I really think the Young Sheldon show is the worst idea. It's
The worst,
It's
for
like
the
setting
least.
something 10 years before another show.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow.
Shade.
The petty is strong with this one.
Shade.
Wow.
I'm going to start with
Okay. Well.
this show felt so much like the new movies, I really can't stand it.
Oh, you know what? It's funny. So, Erica and I were talking during the break, and we were actually commenting on how it kind of had that feel of the movies. And I think Erica was saying how she appreciated this more so than the movies, to an extent.
I mean, I made just the point of it's at least slightly better than the new movie.
That's what it was. Okay.
The thing is, I enjoy the new
In my
movies
opinion.
because it is a different universe where action is the answer, which is not what Star Trek ever was. Action was never the answer.
No.
Investigation, and then action as a necessary reaction,
Right.
But not just action is the answer. And in the new movies, action is always the answer. It's the only answer. And I can understand that because Kirk was never taught temperance, and Kirk runs the ship, so action is always the answer. And when you watch the original series, action is always his answer, but then he lets himself be tempered, and Spock tempers him. Spock doesn't temper him in the new movies because he has no reason to. He's a rage-filled ball of rage who has so many responsibilities he can't focus.
Right.
I'm fine with that because the movies can be different. This is not in that universe.
Well, okay. To be fair, let me give a little bit of counter to that.
Sure. You're wrong, but no.
Oh,
Go
okay,
ahead, go ahead.
okay,
All
that's
right.
fine. I quit. Put that on the blogs,
Man, I win.
right? No, I think we have to wait for more episodes and the universe to kind of develop, because I think with Discovery, what they're doing based on just like the conversations, like for example, the conversation between the admiral, the captain, and the first officer, and then later with the science officer and the captain and number one again, is that they're setting up the dynamic of, in the original series and even in the next gen, we never saw the dichotomy of humans or even interspecies situations that have to deal with gender and race in a way that where it factors into that.
Okay.
And so what you're looking at is that you're looking at a first officer who is a black human female who
Okay.
was raised by Vulcans. And so you already see this inner struggle where she's trying to be very
well, she has a broken cultural identity.
yeah, exactly. And that's something that you never really saw in the series in and of itself, both old and new, was that
I would
you
I would
never
disagree
really
though.
saw. Okay, but let me put it to you like this in the lens.
Sure,
You ready? So as a minority,
Sure. Yeah, okay.
believe me, you've never seen culture done in that way. It has always been the experiment of they've been very direct, like, oh, Klingons are very this, or oh, the Ferengi are very that, but they've never really, because at this point humans have evolved beyond race,
Right.
gender and all of these things. Here you're still dealing with a federation where race and identity and gender and all those things are very much key. The humans haven't completely evolved beyond that. So we don't know exactly where they are in that flux of that, and I think that plays into it. I think that's something that they're trying to play with.
I understand where you're coming from. I don't fully agree, mostly because Spock did that. The whole thing was Spock was half human, half Vulcan, so he fought both sides the whole time. He never had a full cultural identity either. It just was not as pronounced as this. And I think that modern culture is showing a different type of fighting against that. And I don't have a problem with them putting
Right.
it here. I think it was I think that
Yeah.
was one of the things about this episode that was well done.
But there's something also that's different about Spock too, in that you have to understand that, like, yeah, you're right. But then again, like, so Spock had what I call the passing syndrome, which is where, like, if you look at him, if it wasn't for the fact that he would lash out, nothing really gave him away about the fact that he was human. So
Okay.
like his internal struggle is vastly different. So again, it goes back to the fact that when you look at it in the context as a whole,
Okay.
it's the same. It's looking at it from the same lens, but the difference is that Spock was being admonished by his culture because he had a very strong cultural identity,
Yeah.
and there was no real duality about it. What made the duality was the fact that he had feelings, something that the Vulcans very actively chose not to have. But the reality is that Vulcans have feelings, so he wasn't negating anything. It wasn't like, oh, like I'm this guy that looks white, but I'm actually black, and then you see a parent that is of a darker hue, and then you see one that is
Right.
a different
Okay.
ethnicity. So that's my argument, is that it isn't his duality. While you're absolutely right, he
I can
did have a
see. I can
duality,
definitely see the difference.
but
there.
his duality was vastly different. So it wasn't that he had any mistakes about his cultural identity or anything like that. It was about that they were negating something that they actively as a race chose to negate.
I think of all the things about this episode that I have a problem with, that is the way it's played. I have the least problem with the setup for it. I have a lot of problem with.
Yeah,
There-
like,
like there's a
don't get
bunch
wrong.
of stuff swirling
This-
around it that I don't
The
like.
setup,
But
yeah,
the
was
way
crap.
it is handled, the way it is that conflict is handled, I think is fine.
Yeah,
So-
and also too, I think the problem
Okay, let's talk about real quick about the cinematography, which is what I think. What I think is why we're seeing this like the new movies, because that's what it is. This is the tilted camera. Like the bridge looks like the new movies.
Yeah.
Which there's all kinds of tech issues. Okay, so Enterprise, like it or hate it, is canon. It is.
Yeah.
Like it or hate it, the original series is canon. We're wedging this between the two,
Yeah.
closer to the original series.
Right.
So I get like the technology is always going to be a little off.
Yeah.
Enterprise was made 40 years after the next or the original series. It's
Yeah.
going to be different. But they tried really hard to make it like we don't really have the technology for that, and we have like these weird eyeglass things that T'Pol has to look through, and it's really kind of dumb. And we don't have phasers; we have phase pistols, and we don't even have phase cannons. We didn't put those on the ship. Like they worked really hard at that. This was like, that tech that you saw that's really cool in the far future. We're just gonna go ahead and have that.
At least they busted out a telescope.
like-
I'll give them.
That was their low tech solution, though.
They busted out a telescope. I was like, okay.
Everything was hollow projected, touch screen. The communication was hollow projected, which, if you remember, in Deep Space Nine, that's a big deal. They get hollow projection
In the what were they, 24th century at that point?
2376.
Yeah. So
Like,
yeah.
what the crap? Like, they work really hard to get this. But 200 years prior,
They have holograms.
Like-
Like they had a complete and interactive hologram in that, because notice Sarek
Right.
sat down.
sat down.
And so it's like, oh, so
like,
his
what is he sitting on at home?
Right, so it's like his hologram is able to mimic whatever he's doing there, and so, or when the admiral turned around to acknowledge Burnham, it was like, oh, like,
Right.
oh,
right.
okay, so you have hologram.
60.
I think that right, and I think, I think
Hollowed.
for me, I think part of the issue is that, and I gotta say, I'm kind of shocked and surprised because people that have worked on Star Trek projects before, like Brian Fuller, I can't think of the gentleman's name, but there's another producer on there that produced two of the films, like Wrath of Khan and one of
Right.
the other ones. Like, I mean, I'm like, you guys have worked on this before, so you're used to the canon setup, and I understand that, again, the technology is going to be kind of wonky, and it would be one thing if it was like, oh, like, if you had technology that made sense, like it was like, oh, a very rudimentary data pad, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? If it was rudimentary, like, because I could understand if it's like, oh, like they've been working on holographic technology for 200 plus years, but like it was really rudimentary. So if it was like something that was really small and minute, that like set on a desk,
If
you
it
know,
had just been the holographic projection of that ship,
yeah,
I've been like,
yeah.
that's sketchy.
Yeah.
But okay.
But you
they
got a
just-
full size, like a 6'2" man that is holographed at 6'2" exactly.
What is Sarek doing in his home that he can just answer a
a phone call? He was waiting on that call.
Maybe it's like the evening time. Maybe he's like getting
But
ready for
no.
bed. Like he's like, oh,
Like-
I'm on my eye cream.
What's
Getting a call.
but when we oh my god
Don't
okay.
have a heart attack. Just
No.
Deep breath.
So the cinematography, we're going to touch on that a little bit more. They spun the camera around the ship. Like, why?
That was not fun.
Yeah, right? That was like vomit induced.
But
Their
you know-
ridges are all wrong. Like their teeth are gnarly, but they're all wrong.
Well, wait, like didn't
Something's going on.
But
The
you know what?
Klingon
They-
sounds bad.
I don't? But you know what? In the original, didn't they basically look like Fu Manchu?
But that was
That's not the
because-
point, Johnny.
Oh no, but no, it is the freaking
Okay, well,
point.
if you want to dive here, okay, then here's how this works.
'Cause I'm
as
like-
established in Star Trek Enterprise,
right, but they eventually evolved. Like
no,
I get it.
no.
Or was
As
there-
established in Star Trek Enterprise,
Okay.
what happened is that the Klingons got a hold of the augment blood from Khan and his ilk,
Okay.
used it on Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
It turned into an epidemic. Anyone infected with that epidemic was then treated by Dr. Phlox of the USS Enterprise,
Okay.
causing them to lose their ridges. That's where we get the original series. This is their explanation 40 plus years
Listen.
later. This is how we get the Commander Core. It's never explained how he gets his ridges back later in his life, but they are seen as a subspecies of the Klingon race and inferior, even though they have higher strength, much higher strength. So, what you have here is 3 kinds of Klingons now.
Oh,
We have the original series.
Right.
We have next gen / we have the what we have come to view as canon, understanding that the reason we got the Fu Manchu is because frankly
Right.
they didn't have prosthetics like they did by the time Next Generation came around. That's
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm willing to just
Yeah, that I can overlook.
I'm willing to accept that,
Yeah.
although then they put the explanation in and that was problematic. However, this is a third kind of Klingon that looks nothing.
No,
it looks
didn't.
like a whole new species.
They right because they were bald, like you said. The teeth were overly gnarly. Like I said, their skin complexion, like it looked like body paint, gold body paint. I was like, it's a James Bond type of teeth.
I mean, it is. Ooh, put a pin in the James Bond thing, but it is possible that they're not even Klingons.
but they
could
call
be, like-
themselves Klingons
they
over
call
and over
themselves
again.
Klingons, but what if they're not? What if they just?
Don't give this
Klingon.
show
Well,
credit.
what
Don't
if
give
they're
this show
not?
credit. Don't give
Eric's
this
over
show
here giving
credit.
Conspiracy
Don't do it.
theories. I
Listen,
love it.
It's not my fault the Earth is flat. Okay.
Oh. Thank you and good night.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Klingons.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't have a problem with a weird quote unquote Klingon cult. I like the concept. I like where they're going with that storyline.
Oh, absolutely.
It was so distracting though because they look so weirdly different.
Yeah.
On top of that, we get the sword that looks nothing like anything. I have no problem with them calling to Kahless. Like that's perfect. That's Klingon at its weird Klingon heart. But nothing about them is right.
Well, again, beating that dead horse over here. Now that you so beautifully explained to us those that didn't know, that didn't know about how we've got the difference between the Klingon of like the original and then next gen and then the explanations of everything. It could possibly be this also too is us being able to see like the culture of Klingon develop and like also the different types of item that would pretty much stay the same.
Right.
And it's kind of like it's kind of like a neti pot. Neti pots pretty much stay kind of the same.
Right.
Well, just saying.
I get that like we establish a lot more Klingon stuff. In Deep Space Nine, we get the Mek'leth, which is a daggery long short sword thing. And we get their house daggers. And like there's a build here that we get later. So maybe this is just some weird offshoot sword that that is specific to this cult. So I'll accept that there's a weird sword just hanging out there.
I was upset more so by are you ready? I'm upset by the phaser rifle that the captain wields on the desert planet.
Why?
I'm like, they didn't have all these super fabulous phasers running around back then.
Let's touch on this, okay? Before we jump into what's wrong with the Federation side of things, let's finish out the Klingons.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right.
No, you're fine.
You're
I
right,
can
you're
get where
right.
you're going there. So the language seems off. That doesn't sound like Klingon to me. And I'm
It
not
did
saying
seem-
that I speak Klingon because I don't, because that is way a little bit too far for me.
Oh, is that
However-
too nerdy for you?
Okay, but I can't ask for the bathroom in Klingon, so I kind of take offense.
I have no problem.
Oh,
no.
okay.
I have no
Excuse
problem with
me.
other people learning. I don't do other languages.
And it might have been also like a dialect thing too. Like
Sure. Or it may be like their holy order only speaks a certain language. I'm fine with all that.
Yeah.
Sure. So the armor is weird, which you're telling is like that's painted on. That armor was just like metallic and like shiny and crap.
Well,
Like,
yeah, but it
no.
also made them look like they had been painted.
Right.
Like it was like,
and
it looked like bad. I'm not gonna lie, low key, like that. The high priest or whoever looked like he was in bad blackface. Like they seem very monolithic.
I almost said something about Klingon Death House, but then they gave it to us because I was gonna get mad. I let that have. I don't know what the Black Fleet is. I'm assuming it's all the coffins around that ship, but it's interesting. I like it.
Yeah. Yes.
I was getting a little bit of like a Stargate feel just for like a moment, just a little Stargate tease, like when they were doing the whole like coffin thing.
The
I was
funeral,
like,
yeah.
ooh,
Yeah, I did too. I was like,
this
okay.
is ooh.
It did. I can see why. Why were the Klingons not yelling at each other? When have we ever met Klingons that don't scream?
They screamed during the funeral, but that was
No,
it.
but like they were
And
like,
even then.
I don't like you. I don't like you either.
Yeah, they were.
No,
they were
like
a little
why were they
Lord.
muted?
Again, it might be because they are holy. I don't know. Like it's just kind of weird.
Sarek. Problems with Sarek. Doors are loud. I have notes. That kind of wraps up the Klingon part. There are things about the Klingons that I can accept as, well, this is a special sect. Maybe the whole sect always shaves their heads. Fine.
Yeah.
But there's too much going on here that doesn't have an explanation yet for me to feel comfortable with the Klingons the way they are.
Yeah.
That said, maybe this is just a really weird offshoot of the race where everybody's really dark. It has weird swords.
If they don't explain it to me by episode 5,
And
I'm gonna have some
worships
real
the beacon.
issues. I'm gonna have some real issues.
So let's talk about the tech. So we have touchscreens. We have a voice computer.
Yes.
The scanner on the flying thing is way off. Like, why is she able to scan stuff without a tricorder? Like, Spock's carrying around a giant box, and she just scanning on her.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
She's tilted and spinning. I don't know if you guys have studied much on space travel. However, I went to 2 years of space camp, so I have a little bit of information.
Sure, every time he gets a chance, honey, he will
But
bust that out.
in proper spacewalk fashion, when you're tilted and spinning like that, you actually can stop that with just a quick, easy puff and line yourself up with what you're going to. But she just keeps spinning, and I'm just like, I know that sounds really stupid, but if they're this high tech that they have these super scanners and the stupid suit can talk to her, why are they not straightening her out? Like, why is she not doing this? Then
Well,
go
I
ahead.
mean, when she was floating back, like spinning and shit, she was like not in a
Right, no.
state.
Well, but no, on the way there.
on the way there.
On the way there,
Well-
she's spinning, or everything else is spinning. But still, you align with it because otherwise you get disoriented.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to orient you in space. Like, we're used to being pulled down so we can orient. It's
Yeah,
like
but
being
you
in
got
the
nothing
water
in
and
space.
everything's spinning. Like, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know what is up and what's not. And like, so the rifle I can accept because they, at some point, they are a military as well, so they're going to have a higher whatever, I guess.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll go with that. Sure. why
I
not?
don't know why you send the captain and the first officer on an away mission. Like, who does this? Kirk. Okay, fine. But no. Like, nobody else does it. Why did the whole entire crew seem unprofessional? There's banter?
Well, also, like, it's very, again, like, I know this is going to be hard, but here goes.
Sure.
Like, one of the things for me, and I think the reason why it's not, a lot of these things that are bothering you aren't bothering me so much, per se, is because I don't go into it with the expectations of, like, at the end of the day, the shows that have happened are set in different eras. And, like, this one is an era completely in and of itself. Because if I did that, then, like, please believe, every time I talk about Enterprise, I would never have anything nice to say about it ever.
Some stuff I can find a couple things.
I would never have anything.
There's a mirror episode.
There's Scott
There's
Bakula.
two.
How about that?
That's fine.
I was like, oh, Scott, yes. And I was like,
I don't
what
think
is
those
this
are bad
show?
actors.
But no. So there's that. So for me going into this, it's like, all right, like there are some things that I find problematic. Like, well, you're not able to really kind of explain your tech.
Right.
But the way they interact with each other for an exploration group that has like a military structure, early on, like to me, that banter wouldn't be uncommon.
But the thing is,
It's
in Enterprise, we don't see it. In Next Generation, we don't see it. We don't see it in the original series unless they're off duty. These people are on duty, and he is making a joke about her flight. It seemed... So we've been watching The Orville, which is Seth MacFarlane's pseudo Star Trek show. It might as well be a Star Trek show, honestly. That one is unprofessional in a lot of ways, but they set that up. Step one is the Admiral's like, we're going to give you a ship because we need a captain, not because we like you. Because you are terrible at what you're doing. But you're better than not having a captain for this ship.
This is true.
And I'm like, okay, so they're step one, they're setting up, it's a very unprofessional, it's a realistic, like, okay, fine. So then when they have banter on the deck of the bridge, and they're like, how many bars are in this place we're going to? And the officer is just like the realizing officer that's an inappropriate question, just starts answering because he has the information. And so, like, I get that there. Here, it doesn't fit Star Trek because Star Trek is a bunch of professionals in space doing professional things.
Right, but then also, too, you have to look at the fact that, like, where all of these were really, with the exception of Enterprise, again, Enterprise to me is just a little bit, is actually very much a horse of another color. The other ones, there has already been a precedence established.
Look at you being racist on horses.
No, shut up. And when you have Enterprise, you have a group of people that are, this is like the first like really big group that like hardcore like grows into like space. So they're basically astronauts that are just kind of taking on a military function to me. And then in this one, it's a progression of that. And also too, it's the fact of the matter, like, let's be real, like low key, like conversations like this happen on military brigs in real life. Like, it's just it's about the fact that these people are being familiar, and like we're seeing more of a humanistic side.
Okay,
because again,
I'll accept that.
Because again, humanity has evolved to a different point. So there's certain things that their banter has changed. There's a lot of things that have changed.
But I don't want your chocolate syrup in my vanilla ice cream. Like this, I came for vanilla ice cream. Why am I getting something other than what has been? We are sold a bill that this is Star Trek, but they're treating it not as Star Trek. Why?
And that I can see your complaint.
I mean, if it were a little bit of banter, or if we had seen it in a case where they hadn't just spent 10 minutes talking about how she was going to die of radiation poisoning, like, why are we joking around about this? She's going to die. Like, come on, guys. I can let that go, though. I'm going to let it go for right now. Just for right now.
Yeah,
why crap did they not send a probe?
Well,
I let it go.
They don't have probes.
No, but
they do. I know. But I was like,
did we see a freaking probe?
I know.
It's pulling the.
I know. Why didn't they send? I know.
We get 3 characters that get actual full speaking roles: the captain, number 1, and Saru.
Yeah.
From everything I'm seeing from the previews, this ship is doomed. And we're going to get Starship Discovery.
Yeah.
I think the captain is going to die.
Probably so. Eventually.
But Saru and number 1 are going to get transferred to the other ship.
Yes.
And then we're going to meet the rest of the crew.
Yes.
However, there are 3 aliens from this short amount of time that we get very little speaking parts for anybody. 3 aliens on the bridge. I'm very impressed. That's what I want out of Star Trek.
Well, the one alien, I almost felt like it. I was like, "Oh, is Daft Punk part of this?" Because like the helmet,
that's fine.
Like,
yeah.
I was like, "Okay."
It actually, if you truthfully, it reminded me more of the G.I. Joe movie when, when the Strato Viper or it starts going across their screen, their faceplates, and I was just like, all right, but at least there's an alien, more than one alien, because it's like the original series had everybody and then Spock.
Yeah.
And then Next Generation had everybody and then Data and Worf. But Data is still human because he wants to become human.
Yeah.
So he doesn't count.
Yeah.
And occasionally we see some other...
And also whenever they had aliens, they were always very human-like.
Right. Well, I mean,
you know, like you had Troy, but yeah, like again, it's humanoid.
I forgot she wasn't human.
Yeah.
She's half human, half
betazoid. Yeah.
Oh, she's just human with some empathy. Like
yeah, basically, literally. Yeah.
We get we get Deep Space Nine. We get Kira, who might as well just be an angry human. And Odo, who, sure. And Armin
Dax.
Shimmerman. Well, but Dax is just a human. He's just a human she's just a human with a
parasite.
slug in her belly.
Yeah, basically. You're right.
Sorry. It's just a human. We don't see
actual aliens, yeah.
I mean, we get freaking Voyager. We get a half Klingon and a Vulcan. And then Neelix. Well, Neelix is a whole thing. But at least Neelix is different.
Yeah.
Like, we get the Doctor. Ooh, what's he gonna be? He's a freaking hologram.
Yeah.
And then the worst of all shows, the whitewashingest of all shows, is Enterprise. I'll give you that, because they have a Vulcan who's there against her will.
Yeah.
And a Doctor who's kind of awesome. I like Phlox a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. You can say what you want about that show. I like Phlox. I liked the fact that he was so low tech because that's how he was taught, and that's the best way to do it. So he's like, oh, we need to, heal this this cut and get the dead necrotic stuff out of there. We're going to throw some leeches on there. And they were like, what?
Yep.
He's like, look, I could do a whole bunch of other stuff. This is the best way.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? And he's like, your body healing is the best thing to do. And what? Just, I'm the Doctor.
Right.
Like, okay. All
yeah.
right,
It's like,
fine.
all right, dude. You the Doctor.
So the sick bay, I put sick bay tech is bad. So what is she doing? Where did this pod thing come from?
She's
Do you
in
remember?
a scanner, and she's being like, I was like, okay. The only thing that redeemed that part for me was the fact of the matter that the whatever the biometric scanner was doing, that in the decontamination pod, that it wasn't actually like healing her burns. That like,
Right.
if it
But
had
it
healed
would
her
have
burns,
had
I
she
would have
stuck
been
around.
angry.
No,
I
that
would've
was
well, yeah, but like she had to be in there for a while. It wasn't like an instant heal, and I was like, okay, but still, like, you're all right, girl, you doing too much.
Why do we have phase cannons?
Right.
That's an Enterprise thing. That's 100 years ago.
You have a military
We get
armament
the Enterprise,
already.
which, by the way, the Enterprise is already in service at this point in time. Spock is already serving on the Enterprise. Got it? We're all on the same page here. It has phasers. Why do we have phase cannons?
Right.
Why are we on some third-rate ship?
Maybe it's an older outfit that hasn't been retrofitted. I don't know.
Maybe that's why they're so unprofessional.
Yeah, it's like
They're-
this is like
They're
the
the
loser.
ragtags.
Maybe they're the Orville of like.
They're the
Right. How does
They're
she
the
tell,
misfits of the
looking at this
18.
thing in space where nothing ages, that it's centuries old? Tell me. She's an exobiologist. Is that what she said?
No, exo-archaeologist.
But even then, it's made of metal and stone. You're in space. It's not like winds blowing across this. Like, you can't tell how it's... and even if you could, you don't know... You can't just look at something and be like, that must be 100 years old. You don't have a built-in, chronometer. Go ahead. You got thoughts. Go ahead. Give them to me.
No, actually, I didn't have a thought on that. I just was going to say, you are going to have a heart attack before the series is over.
We're going to finish talking about the tech. Why are the doors so freaking loud?
They were kind of loud.
They were really loud.
They were really
I did
loud.
like that we have current technology that they used on this ship, the one where you electrify the glass and it frosts.
Yeah.
I can accept that.
Yeah, I was like, oh. She's like, computer privacy, and the doors frost up. And I was like, really? Was that necessary?
iconic.
The interactions of the crew. This is my next one. The conflict between Saru and Number One seems overly done. And it did not in any way, shape, or form seem...
You mean kelp? Was that his name?
Saru is the Kelpian.
Oh, the Kelpian. Sorry, his race.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, I got his race
I have
confused. Okay.
notes.
Yeah, you got the notes.
It's weak and forced. It does
It is
not
forced.
seem
The
natural.
Yeah, the chemistry's very forced, and I don't know if they attempted to do it in such a way where it was just kind of like they're both competitive. She's competitive because she's been raised by Vulcans, and Vulcans tend to be very competitive. And then his group or whatever, I don't know. Like, I will say about Oh Boy, the thing that I did enjoy was the explanation about his race and how his point of view of why he felt like
it was an over explanation, but it was done in such a way that it felt very impactful.
Yeah, like
It
I was like, okay,
oh, like he's like, look, I know that we freak out a lot, but like we're bred to know
freak out,
when
yeah.
death is coming, and that's what's happening now. Please do something.
yeah, and it was like nice because like in Star Trek universe, you don't it's always the explanation about an alien group usually very extemporaneous, so it's someone outside that has encountered them at one point, and they
Right.
go, oh, and usually it's little minutia details that you
Yeah.
don't really get.
Yeah.
Although I will say I feel like that later on in Next Gen and then moving forward, they got better about letting the races themselves explain, the species themselves explain,
and have
certain
some depth.
nuances. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like with this one, like I was like, with you, I was like, oh, they're kind of explaining, but you know, like, I'm okay with this. And as long as they don't do that trope all the time,
Right,
because I
right.
feel like they're easily setting themselves up for like, we've got to over explain everything. You know what I think really the problem is with, I know exactly what the problem is with this series already. You ready? Here goes.
Sure.
So what they've done is in some regards, and hopefully it will, as time goes along, it will get better and they will flush it out.
Sure.
But I think what they've done is they've attempted to make, like they do with a lot of things, have attempted to make Star Trek more palatable to people who are not, and trying to cultivate a new audience instead of you know, bringing back the old audience and then new people just kind of fall in because, you know, they happen to catch it, or, you know, I like sci-fi, or I like, you know, Sonique Martin Green in Walking Dead, or I like Michelle Yeoh. Let me see, you know, what they're doing with this. And so allowing new audience members to come because they may like a specific actor or actress, and then they happen to see the show and go, oh, like, this is a really good show. And I feel like that's part of the problem that they
But you bring people in with quality. You don't bring people in with pandering.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Like, I mean,
We're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's right. Like, nah, you do it with quality. Absolutely. However, like, again, you know, Hollywood has yet to learn any lessons.
Right.
So, you know, I see the fault. And then also too, like, they've tried to make something for a more modern era in a way, which I think is why they put in the overtech. And it's like, don't do that. Like, have the technology be true, because there's a whole bunch of things that honestly, like, for me personally, like, I can forgive a lot of stuff if there's certain things that are just like as authentic as possible. Like, if you give me technology that is still kind of wonky, it's developing, or even if like you, like, times where they could have over explained some stuff when I would have been completely okay with, like, oh, well, you know, like, if they did the holograph thing, but it's like super, super sketchy and like goes in and out and in and out. And it's like, you know, all right, like, all right, so we're establishing something, we're adding something to the canon and saying, okay, like, this technology has actually been around, but like, it's very rudimentary at this point.
Right.
And by the time we get to that point, you know, like, start, you know, Deep Space Nine, okay, like, they had it, but it was still kind of rare. It was like a plasma screen TV. It had been perfected enough for, you know, the home audience to cultivate and use it, but still very expensive. Okay.
I really wish they could call back in a smart way. This is 10 years prior to the original series. If they could call back in a smart way to a lot of the stuff, I mean, the engineering, the sets in the original series are sketchy. They didn't have a lot of money. I get
they
it.
didn't. They had 10 cents,
but
we
we forgive that going back and watching it. They could have done stuff here that would have been an homage, or at least a callback to that stuff without, like, if I don't see some people eating some weird cubes and drinking some milk, because that's what they did. Like, I'm gonna question why are we even putting this in the time frame?
Yeah,
I have a problem with the uniforms because this is only 10 years before the original series,
right?
And the uniforms are completely different. Like, they're not even the colors.
Right, there's no colors.
Correct.
There's gold for the two senior officers, or for the captain and number one, and everyone else is in silver, best I could tell.
Yeah.
And there's no,
it's a very monochromatic.
Polyester, there's not.
Yeah, there's no red shirts running around here, like nothing.
I don't get that. Like, I don't understand what's going on there, because it like we talked about it briefly on a commercial break. It is very reminiscent of Enterprise, because they had these jumpsuits, and this is very similar to that in a lot of ways with the change, and you're going to get a change. I don't have a problem with that, but like, military uniforms, when they work, stay pretty consistent, and then we get shirts and like black slacks. Like, when does that, like, full color shirt, black slacks, when does that happen?
I mean, I was just waiting for someone to pop up with some Adidas or Chuck Taylors, and I'd be like, okay, well, it's that universe.
Well, at least we didn't get any Beastie Boys played in this one. Sorry.
I have to leave.
Right? It's like,
a couple of things I liked about the show.
Oh, you had some stuff you actually liked?
I'm trying to be positive.
He's trying, folks. He's trying.
This
is the first episode, kids. Wait for episode 2.
The aliens are good. They're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I like that there are aliens on the bridge.
Yeah.
The ship design I like.
Yeah.
I don't like, so let's go back to high tech real quick. How do they find this? They walked around in the sand and drew a symbol for the Starfleet in the sand. If the ship can't see them from space, how is it detecting that? It's just walking in sand.
Magic.
Motion sensors. I mean, that's the
No,
best guess I got.
look
But
like-
even then, I know.
okay.
That's the best thing.
The
I got.
aliens.
I
Go
think
ahead.
they were trying to go for like a if you're stranded on a beach, putting like SOS on the sand, but like
Yeah, no,
it
that was
wasn't-
dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So looking at the aliens on that planet, those things were cool.
They were.
They were like chitinous insecty things.
Yeah, I
They
was like,
kind of like acted like they were going to like build it up a little bit, like they
Right,
built it up
yeah.
a little bit, like there was going to be some sort of like conflict or something going on.
and then nothing happened.
And
it was
then
like,
nothing
oh,
happened.
we got
and
water.
They just were
Thanks.
like, okay, we're done with this planet.
Yeah.
On to the next.
I feel like that opening sequence is kind of paralleled in a weird way to the opening sequence in Star Trek Into Darkness, where they're going to this planet to save them because there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And these people aren't a bunch of raving lunatics like Kirk and his crew are.
Right.
And that's what we see the difference is.
Yeah.
And I get that. That's fine. Because there's the ship coming through the clouds and like that whole thing. And there's a lot going on there that's sort of parallel.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with... Why do I hate Sarek? Literally is a note I have on here.
Why do I hate Sarek? Is that your note?
Why do I hate Sarek? Why is Sarek just sitting at home waiting for this call? Why does Sarek know exactly what's going on?
Well, here's my thing. Are you ready? So, like, my whole thing about Sarek was
Couldn't we have used a different freaking Vulcan? How many Vulcans are there?
Yeah,
There's like millions,
Five
if
and a
not
half.
billions.
yeah, that's always the
Why
thing.
can't we use a different one?
Yeah, and like that's always my thing. They always go to like either Spock or Sarek. Like there's never anybody else that they go
And
to.
do
And I'm
we-
like, there are, like you said, there are a plethora of Vulcans to choose from. And also, I feel like that to me, Sarek felt a little less Vulcan. Like he
Right.
felt like I felt like that Burnham was more Vulcan than human, and he was
Right.
more human than Vulcan.
Right.
And so like that juxtaposition, like it because the thing that I always liked about Sarek was that Sarek was, you would always encounter other Vulcans and they were very 100% Vulcan.
Yeah.
And he was the Vulcan that like was 99.9%, and you
Right.
would see those spurts of the 1%, and whether it was a very overt or whether it was very subtle and just like the words that he selected in the conversation, and that's how you were able to see the human side of Sarek. But here it's literally like, you know, Sarek's just a homeboy chilling, and he's
Right.
just like you said, like, you know, oh well, I was waiting for you to call, girl. Like, you know, like I knew you was gonna call me. I knew you'd call eventually. It's about time you called. Good for you to pick up the phone. I was like, what is this?
I've been waiting for you.
Right. I was like,
Yeah.
what is this?
But I feel like I agree. Like the original Sarek was very like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Mhm.
I actually feel something.
Yeah.
But like very like cool exterior. This is like I'm feeling things for you. I am attached to you emotionally, and
Right.
you know it, and I know it, and it's obvious.
Yeah. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Which is also
Here we go.
how I get men.
I think the thing that that's a whole nother podcast, young
but that's
lady.
another podcast.
But I, you know, and I think for me, the reason why I am underwhelmed and a little disappointed is because when you have producers that have worked with the original canon, worked with the original material, and like this is what you present. Like I'm kind of curious. Like you throw this all at me. I'm like, are you going to explain some of this away? What are you doing? Like that for me, that's the part. It would be different if someone else who knew nothing about the property just kind of picked it up, and you had a
But-
team of people that didn't know nothing about the property, and they threw something. I'd be like,
But
okay, well that's
we're
obvious. but
we're looking at the Orville. So I'm giving this comparison because they're both on TV right now.
now, yeah,
Well, one's on TV, the other one's behind a paywall. We could talk about CBS All Access later. I have some thoughts on that. They're not nearly as bad as the thoughts on this episode. The Orville is clearly people who like Star Trek going, you know what would have been fun? Is if Star Trek wasn't quite as straight-laced, and if they were realish people, and then they did realish dumb people things.
right.
And I'm like, okay, because that is the people in writing and directing and producing Orville going, this, not what that is, but that's because this is his own thing.
right.
It's the same problem I have with Superman Man of Steel, is they called it Man of Steel, but it is not a Superman movie. The heart and soul of Superman is not in that movie. If they called it Hancock,
I'm sorry. There was a movie called Man of Steel. I'm sorry. What is this Man of Steel that you speak of?
yeah, there's a movie.
You blacked
out there.
out.
There's a Man of Steel. I'm sorry, Man of
It came,
who?
it came before
I don't know her.
Batman versus Superman.
I'm sorry, there was a who?
Yeah, but we'll come to reality for a moment. Like they captured none of the heart. They captured none of the heart and soul of what came before.
It's
this.
not recognizable. It's almost like someone that's been in a car crash and their face has been completely reconstructed, and like it's not right. Like I get it. Like it's not recognizable, and I think all of us here, I think, are in agreement that like that's the big disconnect, is that it's not recognizable, and the aspects that are recognizable have been warped in such a way that unless you are familiar with the source material in general or familiar with certain aspects of it, you wouldn't even recognize that.
There are other issues here too. Well, go ahead, Karen.
Well, I feel like if this were not a Star Trek show, if this were just like random sci-fi
Space 99.
show, Space
Yeah.
99, I'd be like, this is good. Like this is enjoyable.
Yeah.
I like this. Like this is setting.
There was some
something up.
cinematography stuff that I would have been like, why are they doing the spinning thing? Why are they doing it?
That's
but
fair.
yeah, but like overall,
like,
yeah,
I would have deeply
I
enjoyed
mean,
it.
I
would've
think
been
the
like,
spinning thing is honestly like just like when
Hey
bullet
guys,
time
remember when J.J. Abrams did all that cool stuff in those Star Trek movies? We should do that.
Yeah, I mean it's the same things like with bullet time, when they were doing it in the Matrix, and it's that fad thing, and like hopefully they will do it this once, maybe twice, and then after that we'll find new and exciting ways on the small screen.
Right. What did I have? Whatever. You said that. What did I have? I had a thought. I had a whole thought. Doesn't matter.
You have plenty of thoughts. Yeah.
much more to take their place. We're good.
Oh, so that's but the other issue I'm having is this is Star Trek Discovery. So the original series had a weird pilot and had pilot issues. It was the 60s. They did a thing. That's fine. So let's ignore that series. Next Generation, we established the entire crew, the ship, the way things run, how the captain and the first officer are going to interact, having never met each other.
Mm-hmm.
We get all that first episode. Now, it doesn't quite match what Next Generation becomes later because they clean everything up and buff it all out.
Yeah.
Fine. People will tell you Encounter at Farpoint is terrible. I disagree. I think it's a pretty good episode. Yeah. It's also a two-parter.
Yeah, for 1987, it was pretty good.
We get a two-parter. We didn't get that today. We did. They put two parts out, and they just aren't going to call it a two-part pilot,
right.
And it's a bunch of bullcrap.
Yeah. Give me
Deep Space Nine, same thing. We get everything we need to know about that crew until we get new crew later because, Worf joins them. But we learn the conflict. We learn what's going on. We learn why they're not on the ship. We learn everything. Bare bones, step one. Voyager, everything we need to know is established there. We get everything in Enterprise, episode 1. We learn that they're an inexperienced crew and they're just figuring it out as they go. That's fine. We don't get everything here. We meet 3 main characters of 6, 7. I mean, if we're looking at an ensemble crew, it's typically 7.
Yeah.
We have 4 members, 5, because we're going to lose this captain. She was a special guest star. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Jason Isaacs was billed on this. He's not in the episode. Where's the crew? We're not even establishing.
Yeah, so was Anthony Rapp. We didn't see him.
No, we're establishing something here. We have yet to establish. Where are we at? Why did we get a 1 episode thing that they immediately released episode 2, but only online? Why are they pushing the sale of this so hard for us?
Yeah, because I'm kind of, that was the thing that makes me nervous, because then I'm like, oh, is the rest of your stuff crap? And then on top of that too, another thing that bothered me was I feel like so for our listeners at home, producer Q got on his phone and was looking up some things and Googling some things, and there was still maybe like 5 or 10 minutes left in the episode, and already like it had got like all these stars for like we still had the last. We were at the next to last commercial break. Yeah. We had 10 minutes left on the episodes. Yeah. It had 62 ratings on IMDb. It put it at 8.0 stars out of 10, which everyone knows that IMDb swings low or swings really high. So it would be like a 9.5 or a 4. Yeah.
It would not be an 8.0. 8.0. How do you get 62 people to become an 8.0? An 8.1, a 7.9, I'd buy it. This is shenanigans. I don't understand where those ratings come from.
Some ain't clean in the buttermilk.
So, and they also had quotes up
Glossing over that.
and goofs and something else that were already filled out. Now, the one quote that was up was wrong because it was when she was in the pod on Vulcan doing her Vulcan test, and she said, should I learn Vulcan? I think it would make me faster. And they put, should I learn Klingon? I think it would make me faster. And I went, wow, you guys just either didn't pay attention or you didn't type it right. Like, what's wrong with you? Anyway, there's something wrong with this show, and they're working too hard to make it what they want it to be instead of what it could be.
Yeah.
And they're pushing us for the sale instead of pushing us for the story. And that is part of the problem of modern main 4 network TV.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're not giving us good quality story.
No.
They're giving us what they think will sell and then trying to sell it. I don't want that. Walking Dead does fantastic because it doesn't do that. Now, I don't care for Walking Dead all the time, but they want to tell us a story. They don't want to sell us a thing. We have too much mediocre TV, and this is probably just another bit of it, because they aren't going to tell us a story. They're going to sell us this story.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sold a story. I want to be told something that's worth watching and learning about. And that's what we get with Netflix. That's what we've been getting with Netflix originals and Hulu originals. Even Hulu originals, good Lord. Like Hulu got their shit together enough to put out good originals.
Right.
Amazon Prime, we get this from FX. We get this from AMC. We get this from non-network TV shows or channels. Why can't we get this from one of the biggest companies out there? Why do they have to bland this so much for everybody that no one can enjoy it?
Well, like,
I understand that there's a money number behind it.
No.
They're pushing this.
Oh, no. I wasn't going to say that. What I was going to say was I subscribe to Variety, the trades.
Sure.
So I get it. And so when they were talking about, when this was just in development like 5 years ago, right?
Right.
And it was in development. They were like, oh, this, that, and the other. And like, we want to do this thing. And I got hyped. And so I would get more issues and I would read. And then as it got closer and they started doing things like, oh, we've got a cast, we've got directors, like this is legit. Like, so, and it looked really, really good, right? Like on paper, it was looking great. But then the thing that really started to make me nervous was then they were like, oh, so, like CBS has picked it up and bought it. And I was like,
well, CBS owned it, period.
Yeah. Like, it was like,
they didn't have to pick up nothing.
Like,
they have to allow other people to pick it up.
Yeah. And it was like, okay, so CBS owns it. All right. Like, there's that. Then it was like, oh, okay. Now, you have 2 prominent actors leaving one of your most popular shows, Hawaii Five-0, because they can't get paid. And I was like, okay. And then like wedged in between those 2 things was, oh, so we're gonna give you the first episode, but then the rest is gonna be behind a paywall. And that's when I was like, you know what?
I don't have a problem with the idea of a paywall. Let me start there. I get where you're coming from. I have zero problem with this network going, you know what we really could do? We could monetize this as our flagship for a much wider thing. And I'll tell you what I've been watching on CBS All Access. All of the Twilight Zone. All of it. So for $5.99 a month, and I'm not plugging CBS All Access, and I don't think you should go buy it. This is what I found that I'm enjoying. For $5.99 a month, I'm getting all of the Twilight Zone, and there is some good shit there. However, what I'm not getting is anything that's currently airing today.
Yeah.
I can't get anything but the last 7 episodes, which is a huge mistake. You don't want to give me anything that's this current season or just the last season if it's during that summertime. Fine.
Yeah.
But why can't I watch the first 6 seasons of The Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
Or anything that I want to, like, I haven't watched Big Bang Theory since like season 2. I don't know what's going on. Why am I going to jump into this? Why do we not understand as a streaming service that we are all now completionists and we will watch start to finish everything? I mean, I've watched all of How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Because it was available for streaming and I could watch it. I can't do that with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, for me, the issue that I have with a paywall is that if you have good content, if CBS had put out original content that was exclusively from jump to finish on their streaming service that was unique to them and was original content and it was good content, then I wouldn't have had a problem with them going, oh, well, we'll give you the first episode on the actual channel, but then after that you've got to get it on All Access. I would have been cool. But the problem is that you basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to to rely on the name of a franchise and not rely on the merit of like good storytelling. It's not compelling enough for me to want it, because if it wasn't for the fact that we were doing this, I would have went home. I would have been at home, watched this first episode, and been like, "Well, this is shit." Like it has some points, but at the end of the day, like it's not. There's not enough there for me to want to pay $5.99 to be able to see if the show.
Well,
is
and
gonna get
that's
better.
$5.99 with commercial interruptions.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah.
Now there are short commercial interruptions,
But still.
and on old stuff like Twilight Zone, there were no like. There's a clear break where the show broke,
Right.
but then it just throws up Twilight Zone and does a little music and comes right back.
Sidebar. I wonder, do they have Perry Mason? Because that's my zhuzh.
I think so.
Uh-oh.
I don't have a. Here's the thing. I don't.
Sorry.
I'm not. Even if we weren't doing this podcast, I would be back for episode 2 and 3 and 4, because modern shows take 4 episodes to get their feet under them. This one's clearly going to take at least 2 to introduce us to the whole crew.
I feel like this was going to take 8 to get his feet under his. Good Lord, it's going to take a whole damn season. Good Lord.
So we're going to get these 2 episodes, all of October and 1 episode in November, and then they go on hiatus. We're only getting 15 episodes this season. 15. Which is a short season for a regular broadcast show, which is the only thing that CBS puts out. Between 22 and 26 is a full season.
I was going to say, like...
Unless it's a weird season. Like, a Voyager season 1 only had 20, but it happens sometimes that the first season's a little shorter, because they don't know what they're going to do with it, and they don't know if it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And then they get to the end of the season, they're like, well, we don't no more episodes in this.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I will watch this thing all the way through. A lot of people, Johnny Brown, think Enterprise is bad. I love Enterprise. I think it's by one of the better seasons, or one of the better shows in the Star Trek franchise. I think it's way better than Voyager. I think Voyager, compared to Enterprise, Voyager is a flaming trash heap.
I didn't like Voyager.
Right? But you liked Enterprise less.
I didn't like Voyager at all.
So I liked Enterprise for what it was, and I overlooked a lot of things, because there's a lot of things wrong with Enterprise. I agree with you. But I overlooked a lot of those things. The problem, what I've seen so far, is I took 2 pages worth of notes while watching this. Every time something pissed me off, I wrote it down. Or every time I had a question, because I didn't know what Kelpians were. And turns out they created them for this. Which I get that you want to create other aliens, but why do we not have an Andorian on that freaking ship?
Andorians always get played out.
The thing is, we got them in the original series.
mentioned.
We get them in the original series, and we get them in Enterprise. That's bookending 3 other series. Why do we have no Andorians? Why do we have no Rigelians? Why do we have no what's the other they look like little dogs with like manes.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
But they helped found the Federation. Why are these people not on ships? Why is it only Vulcans? Why are we only getting Vulcans?
we always get Vulcans.
I'm tired of seeing new aliens for no reason. They could have brought back the Xindi from freaking Enterprise. It's 100 years later. They're explained that they're part of the Federation now. The Xindi were cool.
They really kind of were.
They have so many options here, and instead of sticking with what's going on around it, they want to do something cool. That's why we got the Klingons looking all weird. That's why we get 3 new races on the freaking ship we don't know. The Kelpians? No one knows about the Kelpians. It would have come up. That's why we get a first officer that acts more human than Vulcan, or acts more Vulcan than human, because God forbid we don't have Vulcans in a freaking show. I mean, look at Next Generation and DS9 are the only ones that don't feature a Vulcan.
Yeah.
Why do we need Vulcans so bad? We don't. I will probably stick around for this first season. I'll probably watch every episode of this show. I've watched all of of Voyager, and I hate it. I've watched all of Enterprise, and I love it. I've not watched all the animated series. That one's really bad.
I mean, I'm committed. I've signed a contract, so I'm committed to the first season.
Right.
If there is a season 2 of this, you'll have to check the blogs to see if producer Q can get me back for season 2. But I'm gonna come back. But no, like I'm with you. Like I'm gonna stick around and see what develops, and hopefully maybe by episode 4, not only will they have gotten their footing, but also they've been able to kind of clean some of this up. Like they've been able to see, okay, like we kind of messed this up. Let's rectify some stuff. Because otherwise, like this might be worse than Voyager if they keep going on this trajectory.
I'm the thing is, Voyager, as bad as it is, didn't make me ask all these questions. It was just not great writing. That was it.
And again, I feel like this show is suffering from the syndrome that I have with a lot of sometimes movies that are produced in Hollywood. They go trying to be edgy and be cool and appeal to a mainstream audience as opposed to like giving the hardcore fans what they want,
right?
And allowing new doing little subtle things, or just letting there's this actress that I really like, she's doing this thing or he's doing this thing, let me go check him out, and then they fall in love with the show because they like the person, but then they start to like the universe as well as their own merits, and unlike, granted, again, like a lot of things, it is not a super, it's linear, but there's breaks because of this, that, and the other. But it is nothing like, say, a comic book. Like, I'm so forgiving of comic book movies and shows because you've got 99 different canons because of this and that.
Right.
And so for me, like, very rarely do I get this heated about a superhero genre or something or other, because it's like, look, there's 99 different things because you got 99 different. But here I feel like that again, I'm disappointed because you have at least two producers that have worked on the franchise as producers and writers and directors for other material for it, and like
not just like one script. Like, these guys were involved.
Yeah, involved hardcore. And you mean to tell me you weren't in the writer's room to say, okay, if you're not respecting the property, you don't understand the history and the culture of the property, and if not, like, we need to like address that. Like,
I feel like a big problem with this is that it feels like it's really controlled by the network, whereas the original series was, the network didn't love it.
They didn't.
Well, and
they had to fight to keep it on, and it had more spirit because it wasn't controlled by like the.
Well, and what's here to fight for?
Right.
There's nothing here to fight to keep this on.
No.
The thing is, there's no confidence behind it by the network, or they would have announced exactly how many episodes we wouldn't take a break, unless that happens to be during football time. But come on, like, we couldn't figure out another way to do it. They put it behind a paywall on a streaming site, but didn't do a streaming service the way a streaming, like Hulu was like, hey, have you seen Handmaid's Tale? Because it's all out today. Now go watch it, binge that. Yes, give in to us. Like, say what you want to say about the shows that Netflix and Hulu and Amazon put out, but like, they hook you and they're like, try and get away. See what happens.
Yeah, because I'm faithfully paying $9 on Netflix.
Right.
So I'm mad as all get. And that was another thing too that kind of really concerned me, was that when I've discovered, to my dismay, that this was going to be behind a paywall, I was like, oh, so it's going to be behind a paywall. Well, I'll be able to sit down and watch all the rest of the episodes, right? And it was like, no, like, it's going to come out like and I was like, well, then why are you doing that? Like, that's the purpose of a streaming service, to be able to like, oh, like, I saw the one episode on TV, that's good. Well, I can catch the rest later. Go on about my day.
They could even
life,
release them in chunks. Boom. They could release 5 episodes today, 5 episodes in 2 months. I'd be like, those 5 episodes were awesome. One of them wasn't so great, but I'm gonna come back for them other 5 episodes.
I'll wait. Let me put it in my queue. I'm ready.
They're half-ass embracing the streaming service.
Yeah,
they're not taking it at what it's like. You have to use a tool for what it's used for.
Absolutely.
And they're using the streaming service to promote their other stuff. I get that. I still think the concept behind putting this as their flagship to bring you into all access, and you have access to all these other things, that's great. They're not streaming all the other shows fully.
No.
And this one is coming out piecemeal. And I don't want piecemeal when I stream. I want to binge. Yeah. That's the only reason I allow HBO to stick around, is because week to week, I want to watch that. I hate watching Game of Thrones week to week, but I will do it because that show is that good. If this show was that good, I'd shut the hell up. If this show was Game of Thrones quality from front to back, say what you want to say about them deviating from the books. When they deviate, they do it for a reason that makes sense for the story and makes for an ease of people following a story that has 855 named characters in the first 10 minutes that you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So, like, say what you want to say about Game of Thrones, but you know what? They make choices for story, and that shows. This made choices for getting people to buy into that paywall, and I don't want to now. I'm not. The only reason I'm not mad is because Twilight Zone's on there. That's it.
Yeah,
And because it'll play on my Apple TV.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think hopefully it'll get better. Like that's all I can really say at the end.
It's a big
Like,
hope.
Yeah, hopefully it'll get better because it's like, oh, I don't know that. Even if it makes it to a season 2, I don't know that if they keep going with this trajectory of like you said, writing with the intent of trying to sell a product,
Right.
I don't know that it won't be, there is no, I don't know, it won't be worthwhile because I'm not invested in it. Like there's nothing compelling. And so like, if you're not,
I'm not attached to any of these characters.
no. And also too, like they're not, you could tell the network wasn't confident in this. You could tell the writers weren't really like,
Why are they introducing us to a captain they're going to kill off right away? Like, even if they don't kill her off, we get a different captain. We get a different ship. Why are they introducing... They're putting us in a position where they want us to invest in something they're going to take away immediately. Why? They do it in Voyager in a way. They bring the Maquis on and a Maquis ship and they take it away. But they leave us with the crew and that creates the conflict. This... Like, why are we doing this? Why are we getting a captain that doesn't matter? And a good actress.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
to be like, let's put Patrick Stewart on this ship, but we're gonna get rid of him third episode. Don't worry about that. Like, no.
I
why?
mean, looking at it from like a creative and writing standpoint, like there's a myriad of reasons as to why that could be, especially because their intention is to tell this story, this narrative from the perspective of the first officer. I think it could have been handled and done a better way.
A first officer needs their own command. That's the first thing we get told.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that soundstage work was terrible. The audio from that I know you guys didn't agree with me, but this is reminiscent of Bane in Dark Knight Rises, and it pisses me off.
Like, what are you saying, bro? I don't know. Can I get subtitles? Like, because I need subtitles for Batman. Oh, I can't get subtitles. Listen, I'm not about to play the mumble games.
Right.
We're just not.
This was overly loud and didn't reflect where they were at. It was the worst. And I'm like, why can't you get your audio engineering correct? I will say I'm not the best audio engineer, but I'm a hell of a lot better than that.
Come on, Matt, quiet. We see you.
All right. So, what are your guys' suggestions? Should people come back next week?
Ladies first.
Well, people should come back to us. Because,
Oh, so is that your way of
Because
saying you're gonna be here
that's-
next week? You gonna do that?
well, what happens happens.
Okay.
But people should come back to the podcast to hear the synopsis.
Okay.
So
I
that's why
wouldn't
they should
So
recommend.
hear from us what we
necessarily
think.
right.
I do
show.
not promise a non-spoilery. We'll start off next week's podcast with should you watch it or not.
Yeah. It's hard.
The silence speaks volumes.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like if you are a super diehard Trekkie where you're like, I would die for you, Kirk.
Where you fight about which captain's the best.
Yeah, exactly. If you're fighting about which one's the best, if you can go on a 2-hour tirade about how any, subparticle beams work, anything like that, this is not your Star Trek, and you might want to wait till it's all out and then go into it where you can actually sit down and just kind of binge it. But if you're there to kind of jump in and see what happens, see how it progresses, see if maybe it becomes something that's able to hold its own within the franchise, give it a spin at least the first couple of episodes just to see where it may shake out.
So here's what I think that our listeners should do. I'm going to say this with the understanding that I'm essentially telling you not to listen to our podcast. So 4 weeks from now, you should go order CBS All Access because you should have watched The Twilight Zone and you're missing out. It's a solid series. It's got its problems. It's of a period, but even with those issues, it's super
It still
solid.
holds up.
It's a
Yeah.
little creepy. It's a
Yeah.
little weird. Different things are happening. Go watch you some Twilight Zone. And while you're there, be like, you know what? There are like 5 episodes out. Let me check those out. get a look at Star Trek Discovery then, because you're only paying for the month because you want to watch some Twilight Zone. So pay your $6 one time, watch the 5 episodes. If at the end of that, and this is after 1 episode, I don't know what the other 4 episodes are going to look like. I apologize right now if they look really bad. At the end of that, if you're like, that Star Trek Discovery thing, that wasn't so bad, then stick around. Because if you can't get to that point and say that wasn't so bad, then the show is not worth watching for you.
Yeah.
Having said that, Twilight Zone, totally worth checking out. First episode, just by itself, is really solid.
Quality television.
I don't know that this show is worth paying $5.99 for, even for 1 episode. This is with the understanding that I have bought Hulu to watch terrible movies when they had the Criterion Collection on, and there were several months where I was like, why am I paying for this service? It's $10 a month, and I'm going to tell you right now, Dillinger is Dead is the worst thing I've ever seen, and I did that anyway. This, I would not pay $5.99 for. I paid $10 for Dillinger is Dead, and it is terrible. This is going to be a big, your mileage may vary. This show really comes down to what works for you, and I think the best way to find that out in this instance is wait until a few episodes are out and then get behind the paywall and see what it's like. Hopefully they don't yank episodes too quick, because that could happen too, and if that happens, I'm going to get pissed, because I want in 5 weeks to be able to watch the first episode again, having watched the other 4, to really connect with what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and also see all right, I get it now, because again, that's part of the problem is that you've got the first. They just effed up with this. I think they really should have put the first 4 episodes out, and what they should have done was the first 1 and 2 should have just been one big premiere, and then they've been okay,
it should have been a limited commercial interruption premiere.
Right. And then 3 and 4, episodes 3 and 4 are out now. And then when they, broke it up online, part 1, part 2, that's cool. They could have done that. But, they should have immediately put out the first 4 episodes so you could get a real tangible feel. And in them trying to do this, they're trying to do episodic on streaming, which it could work, but it depends on how you do it. And really, you have to do it in episodic chunks. So it's like episodes 1 through 4.
You get an arc. Yeah. Because this is one of the things that Enterprise did really well, is they would be like, this episode and the next 3 are going to be one part of an arc, and that arc is important. That whole story links together. So we're going to give you some cliffhangers along the way, but we're going to wrap that up.
Yeah.
If they did that with, this arc is 2 episodes, this arc is 3 episodes, this arc is 4 episodes, I would watch those, and I would want to binge those. Put those 3 episodes out at once. Make me watch a movie. I don't care.
Basically.
I'm not going to be mad at you.
Yeah.
Put me through a full movie. I can watch it in my pace, in my chunks. What CBS isn't getting is that TV watching today is about what the consumer wants, not what the network wants. And the days of the network dictating to us what we can and can't do are gone. And they've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
So, normally I'm not this negative on a podcast. We have very specific rules here at Nerd's Domain about not being negative. I mean, literally, it's written in our paperwork that being positive is the number one thing. I don't feel that this show is the worst thing I've ever seen, because it isn't. But I don't feel like it is the quality that deserves the Star Trek name. Even Voyager, for all the things I don't like, they got solid actors. They got solid set designs, solid, it may have been a little generic on its camera work and stuff, but there are some really good episodes in the Voyager too. Yeah. The Hirogen were good. Their conflict with the Borg, there's some good stuff there.
Right, and real quick, because I know we're trying to get down and get to wrapping things up, but I want to really touch on the fact that I think, honestly, in my opinion, Star Trek Discovery really shows me.
Well, I'm going to do what Discovery did. I'm going to cut you off right there and not let you give us the rest of your analysis and put the rest of it behind a paywall. And now it's already going to be out by the time they hear this.
Right.
I'm sorry. You can go ahead. Go right ahead.
Right. Exactly. But no, I think this is a prime example of why it's really important for network television to really step their game up and have really good solid writing, because when you had the writer strike and then people were fleeing to just primetime channels like HBO and
Right.
Cinemax and things like that.
Right.
And then streaming on top of that came, 10 years later. Well, the writer, the networks, didn't have time to really kind of recover and bounce back from the writer's strike, because now they've got these streaming services, and you have things. And before that, you had like things like YouTube and Vimeo starting to pop up where people could put together shows. And so people were able to see like more diversity, better writing, people going back to like, oh, well, we don't have a budget to do high special effects, but we can do all these camera tricks and all these low end things that like you would think that we had them. And instead of them going back to the basics and saying, let us write a really quality stellar show that really, pays homage, and also find ways that we can be distinct and unique, but also be true to what has come before us and has already set the precedence. And instead, like you said, they very much have created something that they're trying to just basically sell. They're trying to use the Star Trek name in order to sell a service, instead of like the other way around, where like you use a service to sell Star Trek.
Right. Or you use the writing to sell the fact that the story is
because
good.
the thing that makes me upset in this instance is that they've got quality actors.
Right.
And they've got quality people behind the camera.
And you know what? We may get 4 episodes in the problems we're having with the chemistry between people is going to go away.
Yeah.
That may happen.
Yeah.
But that's not happening yet.
Yeah.
And they don't have a script that allows it to happen.
Yeah, and it's all behind, like you said, and for me, I was so... It didn't show, but there was an internal rage because I'm still 80s kid at heart. I enjoy it when occasionally I see a show that's set in modern times and they put the words "to be continued" up there,
right?
Or they say "to be continued." It's like, oh, like this new generation don't know what "to be continued" means,
right?
And so it's cool if you wanted to just kind of cut it there, but like give me some sort of like even the cliffhanger, the way they did it was just like it literally is just like, that's one episode that they just cut. It's literally one episode they just cut.
Yeah.
That's it.
I feel like they were trying, like they wanted us to feel suspense, but they didn't give us suspense.
Yes.
They didn't put a period on that sentence.
They did not. It's a run-on.
They were like,
it's a run-on.
Here is this suspense, but they weren't like, this is what's going on. What's going to happen? That we're going to wrap up the episode, but what's going to happen?
And we waited through a commercial break because we thought more show was coming.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
like,
nothing. And then they were like, go to CBS All Access to see
and
the
then
second episode.
They give us hints at what's coming the rest of the season, which some of that was
Some
a
of it looked good.
That was a
I
good
said-
sizzle reel.
I
That
said,
was.
Yeah, I was like, this look good. I was like, okay, maybe there's hope. But then again, I've been burned by plenty of movies and TV shows where like the trailers looked real good, and then baby, I got in there and I was like, what was this? What was this? Jackie Chan's the medallion.
So, all right. We are going to wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
I hate to be like that, but
We got nothing.
thank you guys for listening. Remember, we have other podcasts on the network on this show. You can check those out over at nerdsdom.com, and we will talk to you guys real soon. And that will do it tonight for us on There Are 4 Lights. Remember, you can email us at nerdsdomain@gmail.com or find us on Facebook and Twitter at facebook.com/nerdsdomain and twitter.com/nerdsdomain. And don't forget that we have a site, nerdsdom.com. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. You can head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. We want to thank 5 Year Mission for our awesome music. You can find them over at 5yearmission.net. Don't forget, you can support us at patreon.com/nerdsdomain and check out our t-shirts at tpublic.com/user/nerdsdomain. Have a great night.